Welcome to Movies Review. Our story begins at a cemetery set in Halloween of 1986. A little boy named Ben walks there in a costume, carrying a bag for trick-or-treating. Soon his bigger brother Jason joins him. He wants them to go a certain route because all the good houses are on that side of town. He claims it's also the fastest way. Then thanks Jason is taking that route to meet a girl named Lisa. Jason says it doesn't matter, because Ben will still go trick-or-treating. Regardless, he'll just be doing it while he says with them. Then Jason starts running and hides behind a grave. He waits for Ben for a few seconds so he could scare him. However, the boy isn't coming around. So Jason comes out and calls Ben. While looking for him, he finds his mask on the ground. This worries him to the point that he starts calling out to Ben even more. After a short while, he hears his brother scream. He checks the area and opens a gate. Then he sees candy on the ground. Suddenly, the girl scares him from behind. It's Lisa laughing at Jason. Then is there to laughing with her. After that, the three of them walk elsewhere. Jason is upset that such a joke was played on him. He doesn't want anyone to know about it. As they walk, Ben trying to go trick-or-treating in a house that Jason tells him he shouldn't go to. He says no one lives there, but Ben claims to have seen someone there. He knocks on the door, accidentally cutting himself on one of its somewhat sharp ornament. We see has blood on the door flow unnaturally before it disappears. It seems to cause the door to open, and Ben gets quickly pulled inside. The scary situation prompts Jason to rush in there, yelling for his little brother. The next scene shows Lisa walking alone. While injured, she gets in front of a police car, which causes an officer come out to tend to her. All she can tell him is that something is taking their lives. Confused, the officer asks who was doing that, and where. After Lisa tells him the location of the house, she says it knows the fears of its victim. Snakes suddenly appear, prompting her to make a desperate plea. However, the policeman does not see them. A thick one wraps itself around the poor girl and takes her life. Later, the officer drives up to the house where he calls for backup. We find out his name is Rance, and he cautiously enters the house. He finds Ben's mask on the floor. As he keeps walking, someone falls from the ceiling behind him. Then the body gets invisibly tossed against the wall. Rance has a hard time believing what he just witnessed. He approaches as the body and fear and sees words inscribed on the person's back. Those words are never never knock. Perhaps this is a statement referring to what should never be done to the front door of this house. The person this frightening message written on is Jason. All of a sudden, the front door closes by itself, and the next year kids come to attempt trick-or-treating at this house. We hear over the radio how the murders that happened there were never saw. After a decade passes, showing us more kids knocking on the door of the house. The radio warns everyone not to come there to do that. Another decade passes to show us that knocking on the door of this house has become a local phenomenon. Finally, we land on the year 2073. Decades have passed since the house claimed those three young people who would have all been middle-aged now had they survived. At present, we focus on four new friends on Halloween Day, talking about a girl named Grace. They are already in costume, ready for the night. The one nimbly talks about Grace, who got into a car accident last year. Sadly, her mother did not survive the crash. The next scene shows us the mentioned girl as she sits in her room looking at a photo of her with her family. She remembers the car accident. It sends her that her mom lost her life during that horrific event. Soon her little sister barges into the room. She is Jenna, who says she misses their mom too. We find out that they at least have a father, and he will arrive home very late. This means the sisters will be alone on Halloween night. After a short while, the doorbell rings. Jenna opens the door to see it's Grace's friend Layer with her three friends. Then Grace comes out in a hippie costume, and it is dressed to resemble the devil. After Lee introduces Grace to her friends, a girl named Sydney proposes that they go to the house of horrors alone with Layer. Grace tells her that she's sorry her little sister had to come, but Layer is very understanding of that. Following this, we see all of them at the town's Halloween festival. Being new in town, Grace comments on how they take their Halloween seriously. Shortly after the enter the house of horrors, a maniac with a chainsaw comes out to scare them. Once they are inside, moving about separately, we watch them have a fun scary time in his room. The one named Gavin starts getting truly scared until the girl Amy finds him. Afterward, the duel gets discovered kissing by John. This is problematic for Gavin because he has Sydney's boyfriend. They ask her if she's going to say anything about to the girl, tells them she doesn't care when she leaves. Gavin worries that she might speak about this. Is when Amy tells the boy that Sydney treats him like dirt. She gets upset that he goes after Jenna. Gavin soon finds the rest of the gang. Sydney starts talking about Jenna, and Gavin fears what she might say. Lucky for him, she merely says that Gentle wasn't that scared of the place. She also says they should now go to the Never Not house, so they all start heading there. Lay assures Grace it will be fun. After that, we get a flashback of what happened at the ominous house. This flashback takes place while Jenna along with her sister get the grisly history of the Never Knock house from their new friends. Grace has a hard time believing that three kids lost their lives there. She asks who took their lives, only to get the answer that nobody knows. Eventually they arrive at the house, which is now blocked off by offense. Sydney tells the new girls that one has to knock on the door 3 times while saying Never not to see if the stories are true however. Grace wants no part in this. She starts taking Jenna home but the young girl says she's not scared. She runs away and starts climbing the fence that separates them from the house. However, she cuts her hand at the top and the injury is considerably bloody. Since she is on the other side, the rest of the group climbed the fence to join her. Jenna knocks on the door 3 times as she says the 3 magic words Sydney mentioned. She also uses her bloody hand to mark the door. At that moment Grace starts walking away with Jenna again. It seems she has had enough of this nonsense. Amy gets them to turn around due to her scared boys. They all observed Jenna's blood moving on the door like we previously he saw. It causes the door to open, injecting the gang with fear. The reasonable thing to do at a time like this is to run away. Thankfully that is what the group does. In the meantime we witness a black monster moving around in the house. Grace seals out to Jenna because she's not with them. Then the door of the house shuts. Following this, Gavin thinks Jenna got scared and ran home. He also thinks someone is messing with them. We learned that it's not the first time they knocked on that door yet. We know it's their first time knocking on it with blood caring for Grace last as she could go in the house with her to look for her sister, but no one wants to go in there. Therefore the friends walk outside to search for Jenna. Grace picks up the devils he or she dropped. Subsequently they enter the cemetery where they keep yelling out to her. Grace gets a call from her dad. She lies by saying that everything is good. After the phone call she tells her friends she is going back home. Layer is the first to start going with her and the rest of them join it though Sydney hesitates the most. Soon Grace gets a call that says it's from Jenna. However, instead of her sister on the other end she hears ominous static. Once the call is over she calls Jana's phone and hear it ringing in the distance. The plan to go home is cans old now. The group heads to the direction of Jana's ringing phone. In the next scene they walk in the woods where they keep following the ringing phone. It seems like it's always the same distance away from them. Either Gender is moving by herself or someone is taking her somewhere. Leia keeps following Grace while Sydney tells her boyfriend they aren't going. She is scared that the stories about the Never Knock house might be true. She is start to believe them because of what they witnessed a few moments ago. Amy reassures they are just ghost stories. Additionally Gavin holds Sydney's face in his hands to lovingly assure her that Never Knock is not real. In a few seconds we see how annoyed Amy is with how much Gavin cares for his girlfriend. After that Way and Grace arrive at a place that looks like a maze made out of stacks of hay. They start going through it and we see the impress of size of the area. It's going to take some effort to go through such a construction. Meanwhile Sydney gets her skirt stuck on a branch. When she takes her time removing it she gets left behind. At that moment she finds Jenna's phone ringing, so she answers it. Braces on the other end learning that Sydney found Jana's phone but not Jun. Unexpectedly along needle punctures her face, causing the poor girl to scream. Gavin hears it along with Amy. They call out to her while another needle punctures her shoulder. Soon Sydney arrives at the hay maze with blood on her. There she gets impaled again to the stomach. She perceives a sharp call coming out from behind the maze wall. This is followed by her seeing the black monster. A boy stands there too, watching confusion how she suffers, and then he runs away. She starts going through the maze in her severely and dirt state. When Gavin arrives he sees the monster take her life. There is nothing he can do now except telling me they have to go afterward. They meet up with the other 2 girls. Gavin informed them that a monster took Sydney's life. At this point he believes the Never Knock monster is real. However, no one else believes him. After realizing no one is on his side he starts running away. Grace goes on the other direction to find her sister. We see that momentarily Leia doesn't know who to go with. It only takes a few seconds for her to choose to follow Grace. Then Amy catches up to a frightened Gavin. She wants to know what he saw. He tells her about how the monster knew that Sydney was scared of Needle. Shortly after his fear starts getting presented to him in the form of Amy's eyes having turned dark red. When blood starts coming out of them he runs away. Elsewhere Amy keeps searching for the boy who lost his girlfriend. She calls out to him but he only perceives a blood-covered version of her. There is no way he is going to go near her while she is like that, so he keeps hiding. As Grace runs she suddenly encounters flames in the maze. They appear behind her to once Layer catches up to her. Grace mentions fire appearing everywhere. It is her ultimate fear, the same Alamo that took her mother's life in the car crash. Although Layer does not perceive the flames, they both see the black monster. Grace suffers as she remembers the fire brought about by the accident. Soon they start running away until they eventually exit the haymaker. Grace looks behind them to see it burn, but Leah tells her the fire isn't real. She doesn't know is that the fire is likely very real for Grace, the same way the snakes were real to the lately Lisa. Following this we see Gavin walking a bloody. Amy comes out to say she has been looking for him. Unfortunately he continues with his repelled behavior toward her. As he runs away she runs after him asking him to tell her what's going on. All he does is get into a stranger's car to hit, and there he perceives blood dripping down the windows. Gavin is just trapping himself in a more unsafe place. The monster is in the backseat starting to take Cabin's life. Seeing that he's in trouble Amy tries to use a rock to break the window. However, it's too late. The door opens and he falls out. All Amy can do now is mourns over his demise. At that moment her biggest fear starts to manifest. Brief turns into horror as she sees insects coming out of Cabin's mouth, which prompts her to run away. Later the two girls find a lifeless Gavin with the police nearby lake, scared that the monster will claim all of them. This is when Grace ushers heard that it won't claim anyone else. Upon approaching an officer, they see the monster in the backseat of the car Gavin sat in. Of course they flee the scene and fear sadly. The officer doesn't see anything, so he runs after them. Within see the duel. Hiding from the law, Leia sees a Doberman nearby that growls at them. Find out this is her greatest fear and she starts running from it. Meanwhile Grace follows elsewhere. The girls sit together and fear. Grace puts forward the idea that perhaps what they perceive cannot hurt them if they don't believe in, but the black monster is right there with them, terrifying that into running away. A couple of Dobermans make it exceedingly difficult for them to keep running the way they were. Therefore Grace was or it's to breaking the window of a building that they both enter. Sadly Grace injuries are like coming in. That way the duo gets startled by Amy's presence there. The traumatized girl doesn't behave like herself anymore. She tells them the monster wanted them there to bring about her demise. Grace tries to stand only to discover that the injury she acquired prevents her from doing so. She then asked Amy if she has her phone. When Amy looks at it, she sees maggots crawling on the device. Soon the monster appears and starts taking the poor girl looks in the mirror to see bugs crawling on her. The girls try helping her, but sadly Amy experiences her final moment. Eventually they exit the room with Leia supporting Grace. A Doberman in the hallway forces them to exit the building. 5 seconds go by. An event urgently pulls up to them. The man driving it instruct them to get in. He says he knows what's after them. Hearing those words, the girls decide to listen to the man during the drive. Grace wants to know where he's taking them. He doesn't answer her. He simply gives the injured girl a newspaper from 30 years ago that shows him, and he explains he's the one who found those lifeless kids at the Never Knockout. This means he has Rats the policeman from the 1980s. He informs the girls that everyone thought he was crazy due to what he reported observing. They learn he was watching them at the Never Knock house because he usually watches it every Halloween. Leigh asks him why he didn't stop them from doing what they did if he knew about the consequences. He reasons that he had to find out whether he was crazy or not, since he only saw the horror happen once in 30 years before. Tonight suddenly, when Grace thinks she saw Jonah outside, she gets Rance to stop the van. She gets out to chase her sister as best as she can with her wounded leg. However, for some reason Jenna is running away. Instead of reuniting with Grace, Leia catches up to her friend, telling her that it wasn't Jenna she saw. Afterward Rance approaches them and asks if they want to live through the night. In the meantime the black monster crawls there and no one sees it. Rance takes the girls to a house where he gives Grace some alcohol for her injury. She is curious to know why tonight was different from all those other nights. He watched the house not answering her. Again he shows them a photo of the Never Not door on a different house. He reveals that some kids were found deceased there in the 1950s and 60s. Next he shows them a photo of a warehouse with the same door that also had murders taking place inside on Halloween night. At that point Les asks him why he didn't destroy the door. He answers that a part of him didn't want to believe it could be true. Grace returns to her unanswered question, asking again why tonight was different from all those other uneventful night. Addressing her this time, Rance says there was blood on the door. When he found those deceased kit, he adds that he saw the little girl in the devil's costume with blood on her hand. Praise recognizes that description as belonging to Jenna. She demands to know what happened to her. All Rance can say is that she was there 1 minute yet gone the next. Grace realizes that the monster was leading them away from the house this entire time, so she gets up to go looking for Jenna. There suddenly the monster grabs Leigh and starts dragging her across the floor. Grace hears Jenna's voice telling her that she needs to save her. Rance advises the girl to go help her sister while he tries to rescue Leigh. Outside Grace enters Ransom Man. She starts crying there because of everything that has happened. Then her burnt mom appears, asking Grace why she didn't save her. This unexpected appearance scares the girl out of that she tries to leave, only to have her mother block her path to say she will lock Grace up. As she starts backing away, she tells herself this image of her mom isn't real. However, Grace bumps into the burnt lady from behind, so she runs away again. Following this we witness Rance looking for Leia in a room with hanging plastic covered corpse. She soon shows herself, urging him to help her. The man offers it in the form of giving her a handgun. The poor girl has the worst luck because she gets dragged along the floor again by the monster. It comes out and Rance says he should not be able to see the reason he does that. He was there at the house watching the kids knock on the door. Everyone that sees the event take place sees the monster. Shortly after we see how the corpses start ripping through their plastic cover. One of them manages to grab Rats. We don't see what happens to him next. We only hear his scream. Returning to Grace, she keeps limping with her injured leg. She also keeps telling herself the anything the monster shows her is not right. Your hiding in a house proves to be a bad idea, for her mother is there to greet her. The lady grabs her daughter to tell her she has to join in her. This angers Grace, making her say that Jenna is not deceased. In her infuriated state she is able to escape her mom's hold. However, this image created by the monster is persistent. It pins Grace on the ground and start choking her, and nearby rock gives the girl the chain. She needs to fight back. She uses it to strike fake mom. And the seems to finally do the job. Later she arrives back at the Never Knock house. She yells out to Jenna. They're hearing her sister's voice coming from the house. Flames coming out of the ground prevent Grace from approaching the door. She tells herself she isn't afraid before trying to step over the fire. To her dismay, it starts burning her and discovers how it isn't solely in her mind. Since it is real, she gathers the courage to jump through the fire. After that, the flames vanish. She hears her sister behind the door telling Tilly. However, Grace doesn't listen to her. Instead, she starts removing boards on the window to get inside the house, and there she finds her sister stuck to the door with nails piercing through her hands. She can't help but cry seeing her sister like this. As Grace starts removing one of the now sails, the monster walks behind her. After taking it out, the monster's right arm lights up in flames and uses this arm to hit Grace on her back. The fire from it is seen even in her mouth. This results in Grace falling down and the monster leaving Genesis, her sister, lying there. Of course, it fills her with worry. Subsequently, the monster comes back for Jenna, removing the nail from her other hand. She uses it to stab the monster. After performing this action multiple times, she drops the now. It simply does not work on whatever this creature it. Despite her efforts not working, she tells the monster she isn't afraid of it. However, it shows her that she should be by throwing the young girl against the wall, knocking her unconscious. An unknown amount of time later, Jenna wakes up on the floor. She gets up to start limping like her sister did. Suddenly, the monster presents itself to grab her while it holds her. She finds herself restrained in a bathtub that gathers water. This is a location that exists in her mind. She manages to get out of the bathtub to escape into another room where she tells the monster it is trying to feed on her fear. However, she claims to be unafraid. Then Amy comes out to tell Jenna how they all lost their lives for her, and now it's his turn to losers. Gavin is also there in addition to Sydney. They all attack the smaller girl. Afterward, someone starts striking the special door with an axe. It is none other than Layer, who breaks through. She demands that the monster get off of Jenna. It complies maliciously, throwing the girl at Layer, bringing them both outside. Unfortunately, the axe gets wedged into Layer. Because of that throw, the wounded girl gives Jenna the gun Rance gave her prior to telling her to finish the job she wants her to do it for Grace. Once the monster rushes to generate, she points the gun at it. Instead of shooting it, she shoots the front door of the house. This causes the monster to suffer from those shots. Too bad she runs out of ammo before she can deliver more damage. She resorts to running at the door, trying to knock it off the wall it's attached to. What the amount of damage it received from the axe and the bullets, its weakened state allowed Jenna to bring it down. Due to that, the monster gets incinerated. Next, Jenna sits beside her unconscious or perhaps lifeless sister to tell her she did it. The final scene and our story takes place during the daytime. We see the Never Knocked or get taken away by a man who works for a company that preserves architectural heritage.
Thanks for watching this video.